Hey guys, it's Friday once again, and tonight I've got my friend Jeff Leadbeater here. Jeff, welcome aboard.
Yep.
Glad you could make it. Jeff's down in Orlando, and Jeff's one of my barbecue and grilling buddies in the Kamado Joe community. What's the weather like down there today, Jeff? Is it nice
It's hot, humid, and raining right now.
raining? Well, I haven't seen a whole lot of rain in my neck of the woods. You gonna have a drink with us tonight? What are you having?
Eagle Rare, buddy.
Eagle Rare. Yeah, that's some good stuff. I think tonight I'm going to have one of my old standbys. I'm going to get the Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Select out. However, that bottle I showed you guys last week, that Colonel E.H. Taylor from Buffalo Trace that I acquired last week, let me tell you something. That is probably my new favorite. It's it's amazing. It's one of those things though that I'm going to hate it because it's hard to come by, and I appreciate the connections that helped me obtain that bottle. But anyway, it's Friday, so cheers, Russ. Glad you could make it with us tonight. Tanya, let's uh let's see what Tanya's drinking. Tanya, what are you drinking tonight?
I'm drinking a butter rum iced coffee.
Butter rum iced coffee. Are
hmm
we having coffee from the bakery?
Yeah, still coffee from the bakery.
Mm.
I've got like five other bags that I really need to address, but it's really hard to get around coffee from the bakery.
Yeah, we got a bakery right around the corner that roast their own beans, and I don't know if I mentioned it or not last week, but uh, the guy that runs that's offered to help me in my endeavors to learn how to roast coffee. So I'm going to try to hook up with him in the next week or two and see if I can get up there and learn a little bit and figure out if I'm doing anything wrong or if Tanya just doesn't like the type of coffee we're roasting. See, that's the whole problem I've got. I'm not a coffee drinker. I don't have much experience with coffee. I've learned to roast my own beans, but Tanya, we don't. She's unable to give me critical feedback on what it is she doesn't like about what I've done. But I've gotten some feedback from outside, so we'll get on that. Tanya, I'm going to bring you back up a little bit later. In the meantime, let me introduce you guys to Jeff. Jeff, tell everybody what are you grilling on down there? What kind of grills and smokers you got lining your
Which one?
patio?
Which one? Let's say I've got the Big Joe 2, the Classic 3, the Kettle Joe, the Pellet Joe, and the Masterbuilt 800.
The Gravity 800.
Yeah,
That
and
Gravity's
also that Alpha oven. You gotta
the
love that.
Alpha. Yeah, don't forget about the Alpha, man. Yeah, Jeff and I got the Alpha One. What, within a week of each other?
Yep.
It was pretty close. We both bought the Alpha One right about the same time, and I'm loving mine. I'm probably going to cook something else on that oven this week. I've got a couple of things coming up I want to play with. I want to do a video next week on something cool to do with leftover pulled pork, and I've got an idea, and I think I'm going to try it on the Alpha. Hank, glad you could make it with us tonight. Let me get back over here to where I can see what's coming through the comment channel. Tanya's back there running the back end, showing me comments that's coming through. Chip, glad you could make it with us. Enterod, he's with us tonight having terrapin. Let's see. Yeah, it's been hot here this week. We've been in the lower 90s every day this week, and the humidity's up. The humidity's not like you guys have down there, but it's still pretty steep. I'm running, you know, 90 90 to 93 degrees on the average day right now, and we are getting 50% humidity. Phil from Sydney, glad you could make it with us tonight. I've usually got a few Australians in here on Friday night, and Sydney, I was thinking about that today, actually, when I was out walking a little bit. We're coming into what's our hottest time of the year, late July and early August, and the Australians should be in their cooler months down there, enjoying that winter. They should be in their midwinter down there. Carla's back with us. Yeah, Carla's out. Carla's out in the San Diego area, if I remember correctly. She posted a picture. I think I saw it on Facebook maybe today. There's an Amazon facility on the horizon near where she lives, and it's probably the biggest warehouse building I've seen in my life. I think she said it was like 3 million square feet. The place is incredible. Oh no, Carla's in Palm Harbor. Somebody else in here is San Diego. Maybe it's Sandy. Is Palm Harbor anywhere near where you are, Jeff?
It's just over on the East Coast.
All right. Well, have you cooked anything fun this week, Jeff?
I have not cooked anything really fun this week. It's been a quiet week. This weekend though, we're gonna do a couple things out on the Alpha and the
Yeah.
probably
Cindy's the one that posted that picture I was talking about. Yeah, that place was incredible. What you gonna cook on the Alpha? What you got in mind?
I got in mind. I think I'm gonna do me some focaccia on the Alpha.
Are you? I did one of those. It came out really well. Are you going to do our focaccia?
Heck yeah.
Yeah, back during
We worked hard on that.
yeah, guys, back during the COVID lockdown last year, Jeff, it was my partner in crime, and all that bread making I was working on. I sat down and made a list of breads I wanted to master, and Jeff worked with me on those things. We went through the focaccia was one of the very few that I hit the nail on the head the first time I tried it. I didn't have to make a bunch of rounds of that one to get it right. And the very first thing we put together, it was dead on. It was money. And I've since made a video on that, I believe. But yeah, the focaccia is incredible, and my wife loves that one also. It's really good, especially if you toast it up a little bit. But we made a lot of bread. But Jeff, I'm going to pull up some pictures here and run through some of the stuff I've done this week. One of the things I wanted to do this week was take Chef Eric Gephardt's baked brie that he did. He made a video on the Kamado Joe channel, and it really looked outstanding. So I decided I'm just going to try it, and I'm pretty much going to do it the same way he did. But he started out with one of those huge wheels of brie, and I didn't. I got one of the smaller ones, this 8-ounce wheel, and of course I found some really what I thought were really nice looking blackberries. We were up in the mountains earlier in the week, and near the school where Tanya works, and there's a fresh market up there, so they had these blackberries. So I took the blackberries and added some sugar to that and gave them a little mash with a wooden spoon and tossed those guys on the grill to let those kind of macerate and reduce and turn into this. And I took that off the grill and let that cool a little bit, and as it cools, it thickens up, and this was beautiful. This is like a blackberry cobbler without the cobbler. Super sweet. The blackberry flavor here was phenomenal. So the next step in this process is a sheet of puff pastry. So I floured down my work table outside, then I rolled that puff pastry out a little bit thinner, and then I took my knife and just trimmed it kind of into a round shape. This is a little bit of a variation from what Eric did, but then I put my blackberry, whatever you want to call that, my blackberry compote or jam, or my sugar and blackberries reduction, that's what we'll call it, in the middle of that puff pastry, and then I set that wheel of brie on it, and then I just wrapped the puff pastry around that and kind of pressed it into place and kind of squeeze the edges together. And then I just flipped it over and stuck it in one of my smaller greased cast iron pans. This is actually one of my antique cast iron pans that I restored. This is one of the Griswold. I think this is a number 5, Jeff. It's like a 6 or 7 inch pan. It's pretty small. But that pan's greased. I had just hit it with some cooking spray, and then we put an egg wash on top of that, and then we threw that guy on the Kamado Joe over indirect heat at about 425 until it browned up nicely on top, and then we pulled that guy off and cut into it. This I did a little research on this thing before I did it, to see what it is people do with it. And a lot of people let this cool even further, where they can slice it out and have pieces of it to serve. But what Eric did was he really let his get gooey. So mine didn't go quite as far as Eric's. And I may have gone a little further than most other people take theirs, because what Eric did basically was turned his into a dip. He had apple slices, he had chocolate, he had some other fruit, maybe some grapes or something, and crackers that you just basically stuck into this and dip out some of that cheese and blackberry, and it's really delicious. It's really amazing. And what I'm thinking is I'm going to do this again. I might do this a couple more times, actually, because the fruit options here, you can go any way you want. If you don't like blackberries, you could use raspberries. You could mix blackberries and raspberries. You could use peaches. You could use pear. You could use just whatever you like. Just make a sugar reduction of it. You could use apple. You could use apple pie filling. You could use a jelly or a jam on there. So there's really a lot of things you can do. And Cindy, no, that's not enough to hurt the cast iron. Or it didn't affect my cast iron any. Those berries, I don't know if the acidity in those berries is very high at all. Actually, it may be a little bit, but no, I didn't have any problems with that. The things I put in cast iron that tend to give me trouble are tomatoes, and tomato sauces or stuff that's got a lot of vinegar in it. I've had things like that strip some seasonings back on cast iron before, but this didn't give me any problem at all. So that was the first thing I worked on this week. And this is the next project I wanted to talk about. Everybody in the barbecue world knows that it is a cardinal sin to boil ribs. And Jeff, have you ever had boiled ribs?
I have once, but I'll stick to keeping them on the grill.
Did you not like them? Were they not good?
I prefer mine smoked,
Well, we all do. I prefer mine smoked also, but this is one of those things that I wanted to try just basically for the purpose of stirring the pot. Because when I was young, my mom and dad, I don't remember how old I was, but I remember the process. My dad wanted to learn to cook ribs, and I think the first time or two my dad decided to do ribs is he bought ribs and he cut them down, put them on the grill, sauced them, and then put them on the dinner table, and they were inedible. They were tough. They were hard. And back then we didn't have the internet to query about how to cook ribs. You couldn't go to John Setzler's YouTube channel and figure that out. This was before the Googles existed. Well, I don't know how it happened, but I don't know if my mom and dad talked to some other people or asked around. They probably did. They probably had friends doing this. And the next thing I know, my mom's boiling ribs, and then dad's putting them on the grill, and they're coming on the dinner table. And man, we are loving it. We're absolutely amazed. ribs become a specialty. Yeah, Russ says he's done them that way when he did them on a gas grill. But my mom and dad, we look forward to getting ribs, and that's the only way we knew it. We didn't have a smoker. It's one of those situations where it becomes a sin when you find a better way to do it. And over time, this is not something I would do often, but I'm going to experiment with it some more because I published this video today. If anybody wants to see the video on the boiled ribs, I published it today on Atlanta Grill Company's Facebook page and YouTube channel, and I've shared it around as well, so it's not going to be hard to find. But the first thing I did was I cut those ribs down into individual bones. I had taken the membrane off, and then I got a stock pot out. I did this all outside. I used a little portable induction cooktop outside. I had 2 or 2.5 quarts of water in that, and I seasoned that water. This is something that I believe is a good bit different from what my mom did. I'm actually going to have to ask my mom because I'm not real sure exactly what her process was because I was too young to even care at the time. I just knew I was getting ribs. And but into this water, I put salt. I put a hefty amount of salt in it. I actually did a little bit of research there and found, some people were putting salt in it, and the ones I found, it was not enough salt to make a difference. So I think I started out here with 2.5 quarts of water, and to that I put 1/4 cup of salt, and I put 1/4 cup of barbecue rub. I had a partial bottle of the Atlanta Grill Company volcano dust, and that's also got some salt in it. But the bottle I had just happened to have exactly about 1/4 cup left in it, so I used all of that. I put 6 or 7 cloves of smashed garlic in here. I put a quartered onion in it, and I put several healthy dashes of Valentina's hot sauce in there as well, and I brought that up to a simmer. Then I put my ribs in, and this is not a hard boil. This is a slow, easy boil, a simmer, where you can just barely see some bubbles moving in there. Maybe the water's about 185 degrees or so. And I did that for 1 hour and 15 minutes. I was going to go for an hour, but these particular ribs, and Jeff's had some of these now too. These are those extra meaty baby back ribs that you can find at Walmart sometimes. For those of you who have Smithfield, or no, it's not Smithfield, it's Swift, right? Was it Swift, Jeff?
Swift. That's Swift, yeah.
Swift, yeah. The Swift brand, they have these extra meaty baby backs. And if you ever come across those in a Walmart, dig through there and you'll find some racks that are humongous. The one I got here was only a little over, it was about 4.25 pounds, but the other video I did last week was 5.25 pound rack. It was a huge rack. And I decided to give them 1 hour and 15 minutes, a little bit longer since they were bigger. So at that point, I just put them on there and let them go. And this is what they look like when they come out. They don't look very appealing. They don't look very appetizing because they've just been boiled. And typically, if you haven't seasoned up that water with a whole bunch of good stuff, these come out really ugly gray looking. But you can see here that these have taken some color from some of that, some of the seasonings that I put in there. And when I pulled these out, these guys, the texture that I have here is just about right. It's just about a perfect texture for eating. It's not fall off the bone, and it's not tough. It's right about where you want it to be. So at this point, I just sauced them up. I had some of the Atlanta Grill Company sweet sauce, so I just drizzled that on there and then hit it with my basting brush to get a good cover on it. Then I tossed them on the Kamado Joe. At first, I wasn't sure whether I wanted to go direct or indirect, but I ended up going indirect at about 400 degrees, and I put in my additional deflector plate there and gave these guys 15 minutes in the heat. And then after the 15 minutes, I flipped them and sauced them again and hit them with the basting brush to get them a good cover and put them in there for another 15 minutes. And you can see I've gotten a little bit of char on some of these, but this sauce really had a good chance to caramelize in that heat. And it turned these things into what I like to call the lip smacking, sticky, sweet ribs. And they were really delicious. I've got no problem with it. This is what they look like. And these things had a bite texture that I would consider almost perfect. They were not fall off the bone. They were not super tender. They were super tender, but they had that bite through texture that you look for. They weren't fall off the bone. So, and at the end of the video, I discussed, this a little bit, and what I came to the conclusion of that these ribs, taste and texture, they're fine. I've got no problem with it. Where these ribs come up short in terms of what I would normally do is the smoke. That's what's lacking here. And I got to thinking about that. My wife and I were talking about it. And I think I can fix that. And I'm going to do this again. In the video, I said I'm going to do this again, but I'm not going to make another video on it. I can bring the smoke to these ribs with the sauce. I can use a smoky barbecue sauce, or I can add liquid smoke, which is yet another taboo in the barbecue world. Real barbecue people don't use liquid smoke, which, I know that story. But I do believe that these ribs that I cooked, if you were in a blind taste test between this and a rib that I had smoked for 5 hours, low and slow on the grill, I think the smoke would be the only difference you could tell. The taste is good here, the texture is good here, and I really think you'd have a hard time distinguishing which one had not been cooked on the smoker for 5 hours. And if I had sauced these with a smoky sauce where some smoke had been added to the sauce, I really don't think you'd have been able to tell in a blind taste test. It would have to be blind, because these ribs don't look like ribs that have been cooked on a smoker for 5 or 6 hours, because I don't have the bark on the outside of these, the bark that you get mostly when you cook like that. That doesn't get a chance to happen, since we're not dusting these ribs with seasoning and giving that a chance to form a bark. But Jeff, did you watch my video? Did you see the video on this?
Yes, I did. Speaking of which, I forgot, Sunday I made those ribs on the Masterbuilt 800 that you had made the previous week.
Right.
And man, did those things come out good. My grandson Alex, you know him, he tore into those things, but he tore into them.
Well, I'm not one to tout Walmart meats very often. It's just not. I'm never really happy with the meats I get at Walmart, but this is a different story.
Totally agree. I never buy meats at Walmart until you told me about these.
Well, this is the 5th or 6th rack of these I've cooked, and I've had nothing but perfect results with every one of them. And most of the racks of these that I buy are right around the 5-pound mark, and I've never had a failure. I've never had a rack that didn't just come out perfectly. I cooked that 5-pound rack last week to give to Tanya's dad for his birthday. Tanya's dad turned 75 last weekend, and out of everything I cook, he loves my ribs the best. And so he got that rack of ribs, minus the one rib that I ate after I cooked it. And
you got to taste test it. Make sure.
I'm going to feed him some of these. I'm going to do this for him and see what he thinks about this. I'm really curious to know if Tanya's dad would declare this rib to be better than anything I've ever given him before. That'll be a good test, because Tanya's dad loves ribs, and he's been eating mine for a while now. So I'll see if I can pull the wool over Tanya's dad's eyes with some of these. I've gotten some really killer feedback from a lot of people since I've posted about this. Most of the feedback I've got is that I'm an idiot for doing it, but that's what I expected. And it's not that I'm an idiot. It's that I'm not afraid to do things that go against the grain, and I know this goes against the grain, and I know I don't consider this to be serious barbecue. Well, I'm not going to say that, because in the end of my video, I did say, I made it very clear I would prefer ribs that I've smoked for 5 or 6 hours to this. But I think this rib's got a place in the world. And the next thing I want to do is see if I can talk my wife into letting me borrow her Instant Pot. And I want to take a rack of baby backs and cut it into about 3 segments. And I want to pressure steam those guys in the Instant Pot and see if I can get them to the same texture level that I got these by boiling them. One of the things that everybody's told me, when you boil ribs, they say you boil all the flavor out of the ribs. And I did not see that. I do not see that. That's not my result. I'm wondering if all the people that are telling me that have done this before, or if they've tried it, or if they're just parroting things that everybody else says, because these things do not, they have not lost what I would call the pork flavor.
Well, I think those
Jeff,
people probably just boiled their ribs in water and they didn't add any seasoning, and I can understand
that's
taking out
possible
just about
also.
everything.
That's possible, but
we all know water adds nothing.
Right. And one of the things, like I keep saying, I've learned through this cooking class I'm taking, you use flavorful liquids when you're cooking in liquids. And somebody said, cook it in beer. That'd be a fantastic idea, because beer is going to bring some sweetness. One of the things I thought about on my own after I did this is I should have done it in chicken stock, or something other than water. But I feel like I brought enough flavor to my water with everything I put in it. I could put more stuff in it. I could put some black peppercorns in that. I could put bay leaves in it. I could put mustard in it if I wanted to. It's unlimited. You put whatever you think you might like in that water, and some of that flavor is going to end up in these ribs. But the salt was the main thing. I wanted to get the salt in there, and I wanted to get enough of it to simulate a brine. And there's a possibility I may have come up slightly short. I may add a little more salt next time than 1/4 cup, because my brining liquids, if I was going to brine something, I like to use a ratio of 1/4 cup per quart in my poultry brines anyway. And that would mean I'd need to double my salt here. I'd need to put a 1/2 cup of salt in that. And I'm not really, I didn't feel like these things needed a bunch more salt, but we'll see. I may add an additional tablespoon to the ratio next time I do it. But the sauce, I don't know. I'm a big fan of that Atlanta Grill Company sweet sauce to begin with, because it's like it's a perfect Kansas City style. Tom says, come down to Atlanta, he'll drop off an instant. Hey, Tom, I've got one. My wife's got one in the cabinet upstairs. I know we've got at least one. Hang on a second. Let me see. Tanya, do we have an Instant Pot?
We do.
Yeah. You'll let me borrow that one day, maybe?
Yeah, I'll let you borrow it. Yeah, remember when we all got together in Charlotte at Mac's Speed Shop that time?
That's right.
Christy Pye was talking about it.
Yep.
And I was
we
so
went and bought
intrigued.
one.
I had to get one.
That's right. We had to get together at Mac's Speed Shop in Charlotte. That's the first time I met Christy. And Christy hadn't been hanging around much in the Kamado Joe community lately. Tanya, I'm going to drop you back down here. And but yeah, she was telling us about the Instant Pot. She had bought it for her parents, and she said there's this group on Facebook. It's got 500,000 people in it. And Jeff, if you think the Joe Tisserie has a cult following, the Instant Pot makes that look anemic.
Really?
So, Margaret, my sister's in here with us tonight. Good to see Margaret in there. Trip, glad you could make it. So, yeah, but these ribs, these were good. I ate 2 or 3 of these ribs for lunch the day I cooked them.
Yeah, I may have to try that, but I'm thinking about using the Atlanta Grill turkey brine as my seasoning.
On ribs?
Mm-hmm.
Well, using it in the water?
Yep.
That'd be
Worth a
interesting.
try. Yep.
Well, there's salt and sugar there. I'll be curious to see how the herbs that are in that come out. That'd be an interesting, definitely outside the box idea for ribs. That's got. I'm trying to remember what's all on the list of ingredients in that
It's got some
brine.
bay leaf in it and
It's got
some other good
thyme.
spices.
It's got thyme and parsley, or thyme and sage in it. I don't remember everything, but yeah, that'd be interesting. Let me know how that goes. But I'm gonna try this with the Instant Pot and see if I can find it. Tom Cleveland wants to know how your cinnamon rolls were, Jeff.
My cinnamon rolls were awesome. They did not last long. Only a day for 18 rolls. Gone.
That's another recipe that you and I worked on together.
Yeah, we tweaked that one.
We tweaked that one off a King Arthur recipe.
Yep.
Yeah, and it was really good. So
Those things are so
beyond the
easy to
rib,
make.
yeah, beyond the ribs, let's see where we're going after that. Okay, guys, these pork prices are following the beef prices now. Things are getting a little out of control. When
Not as bad.
I cooked the butt today that we're going to look at here in a second. I made a video today of cooking a butt on the Joe Jr. that I'm going to publish next week. But I went to Sam's Club to get the butt because I can usually find butts in the size I wanted for this cook at Sam's Club. And Sam's always has excellent quality. I can't speak highly enough of Sam's Club's pork and their beef, but $3.38 a pound is about $1 a pound more than I'm used to paying at Sam's Club. The last butts I bought at Sam's Club were either $2.29 or $2.39 a pound, and so I wanted a butt in the 6 to 7 pound range, and that's what I found. I found a 6 point something pounder here, 6.7 pounds, and I paid $22 for that. That's okay. You know, I could have gone shopping at grocery stores and I probably could have found a butt for less than that. In fact, Food Line up the street from me had some Swift butts or Swift or Smithfield One on sale for $1.29 a pound. But I'll buy this butt over that any day because these Sam's Club butts don't have the injection. They don't have that saline solution injected in them. Food Line also sells a brand. I can't remember what the brand name is right off the top of my head that don't have that injection in them either. And I buy those occasionally. They're normally $2.59, $2.69 a pound, and they had some of those, but they didn't have one small enough. When I'm cooking a butt on the Junior, I like to stay between 6.5 and 8 pounds. I think that's the sweet spot for the butt on the Joe Jr. But last night, I unwrapped this guy and wiped it down and seasoned it up with this Atlanta Grill Company, Georgia butts and ribs. This is another good rub. I haven't given this rub its due because I'm too much of the time using my own Man Cave, the Atlanta Grill Company, Man Cave Mills AP Mojo and Pork Mojo on mine. But this is a smoky rub. It's got a lot of smoked paprika in it, and it's really good. So I hit that guy, and I wrapped it up and let it ride in the refrigerator overnight. And this morning, I fired up the Kamado Joe Jr., which I haven't cooked on in quite some time. And this is what that butt looks like after it comes out of the refrigerator from being in there all night. That rub's perfectly adhered to the surface of that meat. And hopefully, you know, I've got a good bit of that salt has penetrated more deeply into the meat by now. And I just tossed this guy on. Tossed it on at 10:30 this morning. And I'm cooking it well, when I put this thing on at 10:30, my grill wasn't quite up to 10. My grill was at about 200 degrees, but it's on its way to 300 because that's where I like to cook. And I got this guy rolling. This picture was at about, I want to say 2.5 hours in to that cook. You can see that the bark's forming, but it's not where I want it yet. Here we go. This picture right here just blows me away. This butt, that just looks mouth-watering to me. I've got a nice bark on it where it hadn't pulled apart.
Pretty.
Yeah. And this is about 3.5 hours. No, this is about 3 hours. This is 3.5 hours in at this point. So I double wrapped it in foil and tossed it back on the grill. And then this is what it looks like, you know, when it's done. I had a total cook time on this one of about 4 hours and 45 minutes. So 3.5 hours unwrapped and about 1 hour and 15 minutes in a double wrap foil at 300 degrees. And I end up with that and pulled that guy apart. This is the result on that. It's perfect. Everything came out beautifully on that. I'm going to use some of this next week in another video. One of the videos I'm going to make next week is some stuff dealing with some cool stuff you can do with leftover pulled pork. And I'll give you a hint into where I'm headed with this. That baked brie, I've got a leftover sheet of puff pastry. That puff pastry comes in, there's 2 sheets of that in the box that you buy. I've got a sheet of that left over. So I'm going to do something next week with pulled pork and puff pastry. I'm not 100% sure where I'm going with that yet, but the two are going to come together. So
John, would you say the Junior is the ideal butt cooker?
I think it's really good. Bruce here wants to know how I controlled the temp. Bruce, I just used the vents on this one. I didn't hook my my fireboard up to it. I know Bruce has got a fireboard, and he and I have done a lot of working together with that fireboard. My fireboard fan won't fit on the Joe Junior. It's too big. I've got the fan for the Flame Boss, which will fit on the Joe Junior, that I can connect to the fireboard, but I didn't want to mess with that. So I naturally aspirated this thing today. We used natural aspiration today, Jeff. We were using a carburetor instead of fuel injection.
Cool.
So,
old school.
Yeah, I just ran the vents, Bruce. I did it the old-fashioned way. Don't tell anybody I know how to do that because people think I can't run a grill without a temperature controller these days. Oh man, I like my my temperature controllers, guys. But let me I've done my time already running these things without a temperature controller, and anytime I can save time or effort, and when it comes to setting the grill up and getting it ready to go, I do it. And I don't feel guilty recommending that for people either, as you know. I will. That's the first accessory I'd buy for your Kamado is a temperature controller. So, where am I on my pictures now? That's everything I wanted to talk about in the picture realm. One of the other things I said I was going to talk about, we were going to talk about smoke rings. Was that what I had in my list?
Yep.
I talked about smoke rings, and what else did I say?
Wings.
Smoke rings and what?
Wings.
Crispy
wings.
Was that on my list for today?
I thought it was.
Oh boy. Yeah, maybe. Put brie on the pulled pork and make hot pockets with the puff pastry. There you go. That's my sister talking. Brie on the pulled pork. Make hot pockets. Would Brie be the right option for pulled pork, Jeff?
I don't know. Uh,
What about mascarpone?
I'd be a little sweeter.
Well, it would complement the sweetness of the pork, and then I could throw some sauce in there with it. I don't know.
I have
The
to throw the
brie,
sweet sauce in there.
I don't know if the brie would work well with pulled pork or not. But speaking of that, one of the things I want to do Chef Eric's thing again, and I want to use camembert instead of brie. I actually asked him if he thought that would work, and he said he thought that'd be really good. So, uh,
Any of your soft cheeses are going to work good in that, but you need to go back to the brie and try it with the lingonberry. I'm telling you, that's gonna blow your mind.
right.
And you can get that at Publix or in the international section.
Yeah, the lingonberry.
Lingonberry is going to blow your mind, buddy.
All right. Well, I do have a Publix about 22 or 20. It's only 22 or 23 miles from here. That's that's not that bad. Everything else that I need to go to that I can't get at Food Lion's an hour away. Pulled pork pot pie. Tom knows what he's talking about. Yeah, I don't. I want to do that, Tom, but I want to do it with leftover brisket or leftover uh, chuck. I think I'd probably like it better with beef than with pork. Or leftover. If I want to use pork, I might want to use leftover pork loin for that and dice it. I think that'd make a really good pot pie with diced pork loin or diced pork tenderloin.
Take your leftover brisket and make a cottage pie. That's where it's at.
Yeah. Well, I'm not cooking brisket either because when I was at Sam's Club, found that $3.50 a pound pulled pork or pork butt. The brisket was $5 a pound.
All the briskets at Costco are $100+. No way.
The prime brisket at Sam's Club yesterday was $4.98 a pound. The choice brisket was like $4.38 a pound, and that's for the whole packer. If you get if they sometimes Sam's will have just flats in the case, and that's $1 or $2 a pound more if you buy just the flat. It's typically cheaper to buy the whole packer and then just cut the point off of it. What I wish is if they would break these things down, where's that point going? I see the flats, but I would buy just the point if I could get it.
Yep.
Because that's the best part of the brisket.
That's the best part of the brisket.
Now, my sister, listen, Margaret, pulled pork, chili, cheese, fries with gravy.
Poutine.
That's getting close to poutine. That's poutine with some meat added to it. Yeah, that sounds really good, Margaret. We'll get that going. Stephen, Stephen, I've been looking at those, and I've been watching what Matt Pittman over at Meat Church is doing with that, and yeah, man, those look amazing. I'm gonna do it sometime soon, but the first thing I've got to do that I've not done before is figure out the consomme. I need to make that because I've not made a consomme from scratch. And if I'm going to make these tacos, I do not want to go buy consomme in a can or a jar. I want to make it. And yes, those things look off the hook, and that's going to be common. But it's one of those things I'm not going to learn how to do it while I'm making a video. I want to have that process done a time or two, because that's another thing. My wife's going to love that. Tanya is going to go crazy when I show her that. She hasn't seen it yet, but that's something my wife will eat. I've got no doubt in my mind Tanya will eat that. Matt used brisket. I may not be able to. What I'll do is when I experiment with that on Tanya, I'll probably do it with ground beef instead of brisket. But I'm going to learn that process. That does look good, Stephen, and I appreciate you bringing that up. That's on my list, but it's in the research phases right now. But I wanted to talk for a moment about smoke rings before we go too long. I wrote a Atlanta Grill Company article yesterday that I posted about smoke rings because I've been in several conversations online this week about smoke rings, and the thing about smoke rings is, especially with people who are just getting into this, they get discouraged when they throw a brisket on there all day or a pork butt or whatever, and it comes off and they don't have a smoke ring. And they go post about it. They'll post about it on social media, and then you've got this line of people that says, "Oh, don't worry about the smoke ring. It's nothing. It does nothing to do with the flavor. It nothing to do with smoke penetration in your meat." And they try to talk these people down rather than telling them how to get a smoke ring. And I think the smoke ring's important because even though it's not contributing to the flavor of your finished product, it's contributing to the visual appeal of that
Absolutely.
product, and it's kind of like a rite of passage, Jeff, to get that smoke ring. I'll babysit a brisket for 15 hours sometimes, and I have high hopes when I slice into that thing and there's no smoke ring on it. It's going to happen. You're going to have some pieces of meat that just don't do it. But you have to understand how that smoke ring's created before you can do things to help promote it. Have you finished with your I'm getting low, Jeff. How are you doing down there?
I'm about the same.
Well, I couldn't make up my mind tonight whether it's going to be Jack Daniels. I have this other bottle sitting out here. I've got this barrel proof Elijah Craig that I was thinking about getting back into tonight, but I just decided to go back to Jack Daniels. It's self-esteem displayed on meat. Steven's exactly correct. It's something you want to be able to show. And first of all, it does not have a whole lot to do with smoke. It does have some to do with smoke. There's two things that have to come together to form your smoke ring. There's this material in the meat called myoglobin, and if you want to research what myoglobin is, feel free. It's a protein that's in the meat, and it's what brings oxygen to the muscle fibers in the meat. So, and it's naturally red to purple in color. It has this red color, red purple color, and when you see the smoke rings, these things are red. Some of them have a little bit of a purple hue to them, and what's happening is that color is in the meat already. It's there. So we're not really forming a smoke ring. We are keeping that layer of the meat from turning gray. So think about it like that. The smoke ring's already there. What we're trying to do is keep it from going away. So some meat may lack the right level of myoglobin. That myoglobin might not be in there for whatever the reason due to how the meat was processed. And when you get a piece of meat like that, you are not going to put a smoke ring on it no matter what you do. The myoglobin's got to be there. So the myoglobin interacts with nitric oxide. Nitric oxide. That's NO. It's not nitrous oxide. Nitrous oxide is NO2. They're different, but nitric oxide, NO, is a normal byproduct of the combustion of wood. So, charcoal by itself produces nitric oxide. The smoking wood that you might add to your charcoal produces a higher level of nitric oxide sometimes, depending on how it's burning. But you're going to get that nitric oxide and myoglobin reaction. So what you have to do to help your smoke ring is, first of all, you've got to not do stuff to the meat that will inhibit that thing from forming. And one of the things I like to do is not use a binder. I don't like to, you don't see me putting mustard all over my meat before I put my rub on. You don't see me putting uh, oil on my meat. Oil is a no-no. Oil will get in the way of you forming your smoke ring because oil and water don't mix. The moisture on the surface of the meat is allowing that nitric oxide to condense, and then it's getting into the meat through the water. And Mark says celery salt helps. And Mark, I'm going to talk about that specifically here in a minute also. But don't use binders. And one of the things you'll also want to do is watch your meat while it's cooking. I learned this from Harry Sue. As your meat cooks, when you're cooking low and slow at 225 and 250, the surface of that thing will dry out as the bark starts to form. And when you see the surface of that meat starting to get dry spots on it, you want to spritz it with water. You want to keep the surface moist until the bark forms, because that will allow the nitric oxide in the air to continue to condense on the water and continue to find its way into the meat and continue to interact with the myoglobin. Once the bark is formed and once the bark is set, you can stop, because the bark is going to keep it. The bark is forming a barrier to where no more of that's going to happen. People will tell you at this point, you'll hear this over and over again in the barbecue community. You'll see people say meat stops absorbing smoke when it hits 165 degrees or whatever. The meat's not absorbing smoke. What they mean is that roughly at 165, which I find to be on the low side, that's when your bark has started to solidify. Steven says lump users won't want to hear this, but briquettes put off more nitric oxide than the carbonized lump. I agree with that. It's true. It is. And if you're cooking, that's one of the reasons, Jeff, on the Masterbuilt, if you have not tried cooking in that thing with briquettes yet, you need to do it. It makes a difference.
I haven't. I'm using the Masterbuilt lump in that thing. I've got the one bag of B&B that you told me to get.
Next time you smoke something in that and you want to put a smoke ring out, throw a bag of Kingsford on there and watch what happens. I'm serious. It's worth it. But the bark forms. It keeps no more smoke ring is going to form during that. And people say, at this point, you can take your meat off the grill if you want to, because it's not going to take any more smoke, which is wrong. Smoke that's flavoring your meat is a particulate. It's the stuff you see in the air. The smoke that you see, that's particulate, and that will continue to build up on the outside of your meat even after the bark's formed. If it will continue, and you can continue to, you can over smoke your meat as much as you want. I've gotten to the point where I don't use a whole lot of smoking wood. I'm pretty happy with what I'm getting out of the charcoal itself, but at that point, you're not going to build any more smoke ring beyond that point. But as this came up earlier, there are other things you can do if you don't want to trust this method that I've talked about so far. You can add things to the meat to build your smoke ring. Celery, it's not, I don't remember, did he say celery salt? Celery salt's not the right. It's celery seed. And ground celery seed has a whole bunch of natural nitrites in it. And nitrites are what cures meat. The Himalayan, or not Himalayan, I'm going off the wrong track there. The Prague powder #1 pink curing salt is mostly sodium chloride. It's mostly table salt, but it's got like 6.25% sodium nitrite. Sodium nitrite is the curing salt, and that sodium nitrite also will help you bring a smoke ring to be. And one of the things
question.
What's that?
Did you know in the USA we're the only country that they dye the salt pink for the curing salt?
No, I didn't know that we were the only country, but it is dyed pink for a reason, because you don't want to mistake that for regular salt. even though it is mostly regular salt, uh, high concentrations of sodium nitrite are toxic to the human body. But high concentrations of anything are toxic. But you don't want to play around with curing salt if you don't know what you're doing. But anyway, you can sprinkle a thin layer of ground celery seed on your meat before you put the rub on it. That will help produce a more visible smoke ring. If you don't want to do that, then we boil down to what I was talking about with the pink curing salt. A little tiny bit of pink curing salt mixed in with your rub will promote a big smoke ring. You got to be careful with this, because if you put too much of that in your rub, you will create a smoke ring that looks like the lipstick on those $20 inflatable love dolls. It's a massive monster, super bright, super loud, super deep smoke ring. And I don't ever call people on this, but you can see it. And the reason I know it's because I've done it. I've experimented with it. I know what it looks like when you do it, and it don't happen like that naturally. It only comes out looking like that when you put too much pink curing salt. I don't know if you can do that with the celery seed or not. I don't know if celery seed will make that happen. It might, but the pink curing salt will. So, with that in mind, if you're going to use a quarter of a cup of rub on a butt, and that typically is about how much rub I put on a butt. A brisket, maybe a third of a cup. It's a little more, but I'm talking an eighth of a teaspoon. An eighth of a teaspoon of prog powder #1 and a quarter of a cup of rub is enough. You get it mixed in really well and distribute it evenly. That's going to give you enough nitrite in that rub to build to put a smoke ring on your meat, if the meat's not going to fight you for some reason or another. And that still holds true. Do not use an oil binder. Oil repels everything that needs to come into the meat to help that smoke ring form. So
yeah, just forms a barrier over it. Stay away from the oil.
And I don't know this to be a fact, but I made the comment in my post yesterday about this. I believe it to be a probability. Let's say that. I'll say I believe it to be a probability that if you cook fat cap up, that fat that's rendering off the top and running down under the meat, I believe that that's probably creating a barrier. And of course, I've got some posts of people showed me some briskets they've got that got nice smoke rings on them from cooking fat cap up. So I'm probably wrong on that, but I cook fat cap down for another reason. So smoke rings, play around with some of these techniques. Try it just for grins. If you don't want to mix the pink curing salt with your rub, which is probably not the best way to do it, I would take that eighth of a teaspoon of pink curing salt and I would probably dissolve it in about a cup of water. Dissolve that in a cup of water, and then I would probably put that in my mister and I would mist the surface of that raw meat with that. We wouldn't use the entire cup, but that ratio would seem about acceptable for me. If I've got that dissolved in there, I would mist the outside of that meat with that pink salt dissolved in that water just to get it wet, and then put my rub on. That's going to give you a smoke ring. So there's lots of ways to cheat the smoke ring, and everybody says, people are going to tell you, well, that's cheating. Well, it may be cheating, but you're going to get a smoke ring. If you've tried everything, go ahead and try this too. If you're having trouble and you really want a smoke ring, this is how you get it. I'll probably catch flack for even suggesting that. What do you think, Jeff?
Maybe. The other thing, that I want to recommend is when you do your rubs, do your rubs 12 to 24 hours ahead of time on your meat. Let it sit in there and work its magic. I mean, I see so
Yep.
many people who, put their rubs on and then they immediately put the meat on the grill, and it hasn't had any chance to, to absorb into that meat and put those flavors in there. Give it some time to work.
Right. Well, that's something I've been preaching for a long time. I always do it unless I can't. The only thing that keeps me from doing that is if I decide at the last minute that I'm going to cook, and that doesn't happen very often. Uh, I'm rarely a last minute cook when it comes to barbecue. I would rather cook something else than rush barbecue. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I would rather,
Time is the essence of quality on barbecue.
yeah, well, time is also, I like to say time is one of the most important ingredients in barbecue, but I want to, uh, I'll do it with any kind. A steak even. I like to season my steak. Let's see. Chip says on the celery method for smoked ring, you add the celery seed to the rub, or you could do it either way, Chip. I don't really think it would make a big difference, but ground celery seed is extremely fine. It's almost like flour. If you've ever, I don't guess you've seen that if you haven't tried it. Pick up some next time you're in the grocery store. You'll find it on the spice aisle. Uh, you could mix it with your rub. It's also bringing a flavor element. So taste that. Taste that celery seed. It's not going to be a dominant flavor element in a rub, but it's going to help with the. It's a natural way to help with the smoke ring formation. So, I know I said I was going to talk about something else. Hang on a second here. I don't remember. Let me.
Pull up your notes, John.
Yeah, I'll have to load the Man Cave Meals page because I did that early this morning, and I have to see what I said I was going to talk about. It's probably already gone because the live stream started. So, oh, I said I was going to talk about boiled ribs. So yeah, we've already done that. I was going to talk about smoke rings and boiled ribs. So we talked about the boiled ribs when I was coming through the pictures, but what's new on your horizon, Jeff? What's the next toy you're going to add to your barbecue arsenal?
God, John, I think I got enough in my arsenal, don't I? I mean, I've got just about everything a person could want. Because I built the cold smoker, and that's worked out real good with the cheeses.
Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you guys. I haven't actually shown I don't know if I showed pictures of that or not. I might have when I first got it. Jeff built me a cold smoker. It's currently in my shed out back because I mainly use that for cheese, and it's still too hot to do cheese, but we'll get that out when the cold weather comes around because my wife and I love smoked cheese. So we're gonna.
That does a great job on smoked cheese, smoked bacon in it.
There you go, Jeff. Lucas with us, and Lucas said you've got to finish out Kathy's Le Creuset set, the green stuff. Yeah, that stuff costs more than grills. So,
tell you what, I already got about $1,000 invested in that stuff. I mean, that one stock pot that she got, her Dutch oven, that was over $400.
Yeah,
but the stuff is great. I mean, it is.
When Tanya and I were coming back from Savannah, we stopped at a Le Creuset outlet. I got this. This is a 2 3/4 quart Dutch oven. It's that outlet we stopped at is in this little town called Yamasi, South Carolina. It's just north of the Georgia border on 95, and everything they have in there is factory seconds, and it's marked. The retail prices are marked down, but you pay half of whatever the marked down price is, and I got this at a price I was happy with. I still need to replace my 5-quart Lodge that I dropped and chipped the lid on, but the 5-quart Le Creuset is like $350. So it's going to have to wait just a little while. I'm
But I
saving my
think Kathy
money.
got that
Tanya,
8-quart one, and I think
yeah,
it's huge. But boy, is it nice.
yeah, it is. I'm sure. Tanya and I've got another little vacation coming up in August, so I'm trying not to spend all of my spending money before I do that. We're going out to California for a few days, so I bought a new piece of I bought a new piece of luggage. I needed a good carry-on bag. I don't have an adequate carry-on bag, and since all the airlines have started charging exorbitant rates for check-in luggage, I've decided that I'm going to be a carry-on traveler for this California trip because all I need is a couple pairs of shorts, a couple t-shirts, a bathing suit, and some clean underwear, and I'll be set. So, what, Jeff? What is the Prada for men? What is it?
I don't know. What is it?
Yeti. Okay.
Oh, yes. Got to have your Yeti.
So Yeti's got
Yeah.
some luggage now. Yeti's got a carry-on
Really?
bag. So I've been waiting because I wanted to buy it from Atlanta Grill Company, but they don't have it yet. But it's new and it's still a Yeti.com exclusive. You have to buy it directly from Yeti's website. So I ordered that yesterday, and it's supposed to be here on the 28th, which will be here in time for me to go because we're going the first week of August. So I love my Yeti stuff. Has anybody got any questions tonight before we check out? Jeff's you guys, I don't know, you have Jeff, you've seen Jeff posts a lot of stuff in the Atlanta or in the Kamado Joe Grilling, Smoking and More group, and he's also posting a good bit of stuff in the Alpha group as well from the Alpha Oven Cooks. Jeff's an excellent barbecue cook. Who
I
else
have
have
my
we got?
days.
Yeah. Have you screwed anything up lately, Jeff? Have you had a
Nah, not
bad cook?
lately. But I have had some cooks that a couple here and there that they didn't make the table.
Yeah. Well, last weekend I got to cook, like I said, for Tanya's dad for his birthday, but I cooked the ribs weren't what we had for his birthday meal. I did pork chops off of a pork loin, and I did my molasses and cinnamon brine overnight on the pork loin or the pork loin chops, and then I took the chops and I put them on the PK grill with the grill grates and put some nice sear marks on them, and I let them stay on the PK grill until I got the internal temperature up to about 100 degrees so they could get a little bit of smoke. And then I finished them off in the Anova Precision oven at about 140 degrees, where these things were juicy and tender. And both of Tanya's parents loved the pork chops. They said they were some of the most tender and juicy pork chops they had ever had because they were not cooked up to 165 degrees. But Tanya had warned me. She said, with my parents, if you give them a piece of pork where there's any pink visible, they're not going to eat it. So I took what I knew. I've cooked pork for Tanya and myself, and I'll eat pork chops at 135 where there's some more pink in there. I know Tanya doesn't like that. So the last time I did it for Tanya and I got up to about 138 or 139, and there was an ever just a very minute pinkness to it. Very, very, it was hard to notice, but it was there. And I put these at 143. I set it at 143, and I left them in there long enough where I said that's going to make those things, there's going to be no pink, and there was no pink. It was perfect. They were juicy. These things are just running with juice when you cut into them, and they loved them. I cooked some of the green beans that they had given us out of their garden that I had blanched and frozen. I tossed them in olive oil, and at that point, I just doused them with some Atlanta Grill Company Himalayan Sherpa, and I put them on a roasting pan and threw them in the oven at 4 1/4 for 15 minutes or so, just to kind of char them just a little bit. They loved those. They had never had green beans cooked that way. Tanya's mom always cans all their green beans. and they just end up heating those up, and they really like that. And I made macaroni and cheese. You know, I try to make mac and cheese. I actually did the mac and cheese in the oven as well. So I didn't cook the mac and cheese on the grill.
Well, I'm just glad we finally got you into Brussels sprouts.
Yeah,
I told
yeah.
you the char is where it's at.
Yes, it is, but there's more to it than just the char for
No,
me.
there is, but the
The
char
steam,
adds the final touch.
the short brine in the salt water and the steaming has to happen first. But yeah, and also you saw that I found the sweet potato. I got a sweet potato going that I'll eat. I got to work on that some more. But Chip here wants to know what you cold smoke, Jeff. What do you cold smoke?
Mainly cold smoked cheese and bacon.
Cheese and bacon.
I'll do cheese, and I'll do my bacon. For I think the last batch of bacon I did was 8-9 hours on the cold smoke.
Okay. Well, Jeff, here's something we should work on before the fall with our cold smokers, because this can be done in the warm weather. Is salmon.
Yeah.
We need to cold smoke some salmon, because the ambient temperature won't matter for that.
No. We need to get some alder for it, though, if we're going to do it.
Smoke with alder. Can I buy alder pellets somewhere?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, you can buy the alder pellets.
Who makes that?
I'm not sure, but go on Amazon, because I was looking at the other day, because that's what I want to get is some alder pellets to do the salmon.
Okay.
Adds a nice redness to it.
Mark wants to know if we can mix briquettes and lump to smoke and get an enhanced smoke ring with a Kamado. Mark, you can cook with all briquettes in your Kamado if you want to, especially if you've got a temperature controller, because the only thing that's going to happen differently there is you're going to have a mess of ash to clean out when you're done. But you can cook with briquettes in a Kamado. I've done it many times, and the only reason I don't do it is because of that mess of ash you have to clean out. But yes, you can cook with briquettes only if you want to do it. I would say I wouldn't want to do that without a temperature controller, because if the ash should clog up your airflow, the temperature controller fan will still push enough air through your Kamado to keep that charcoal burning. Eric says, I'm doing wings on the Joe tomorrow and will crisp them up on the PK Go. Any suggestions? My suggestion is you only need one grill. Do it all on your Joe. Do it at 450 indirect heat, and use towel dry your wings first. Get all the moisture you can off your wings. Coat them with a very thin coat of olive oil, and then toss them in a seasoned flour and put them on your grill, indirect 450 for, it's going to take right at about 40 minutes. And you'll have some of the best wings you've ever had coming off a Kamado.
That is where temperature on chicken is the key. The higher the temperature on wings, I think the better your crispiness is on them.
Peter wants to know, what temperature do we do the cheese at? That's the thing. The cheese, in my opinion, the temperature inside the cold smoker needs to stay at 70 degrees or below. You don't want the temperature in the cold smoker to get up hot enough where the cheese can sweat, because if it does, you're going to have a mess, and it's not going to taste real good when you're done. So from what I'm seeing, when the ambient temperature outside is 45 degrees or lower, it's a pretty good time to cold smoke cheese.
Which doesn't happen often in Florida.
It doesn't happen often in Florida. Jeff's got a little bit harder situation down there, but one of the things Jeff built me this cold smoker, and I think I'm going to play around with it some more in the cold weather. I think there's some things that we can do to improve the delta of the ambient versus the internal temperature in the cold smoker. We're using these pellet tubes to create the smoke. I'm going to go back and try. There's two different ways to create the smoke. One of them, the pellet tube generates more heat than the pellet maze. I'm going to probably try to go back and use the pellet maize because it's not burning quite as hot as the tube. So there's a lot.
John,
There's a lot to do with, huh?
that and go over to Academy Sports, and they've got I think it's like 14-inch by 14-inch ice cans.
Yeah.
And I throw that in the freezer, and then I wrap it up in saran wrap, and I put
Right.
that right above in the bottom of the smoker, right above where
Right.
those holes are for where the smoke comes through, and then
Yep.
that cools your smoke down and keeps the chamber a lot
Okay.
cooler.
Yep.
Because here in Florida, I mean, it's hard to get that 70 ambient temperature inside that thing. I
Yep.
mean, we don't have that many days.
Trip Whitesides is asking, what's our standard go-to lump charcoal for the Kamado Joe? What's yours, Jeff?
Hey, I've been diehard with the Kamado Joe brand. I mean, it's
The big
been
block?
good.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of master built lump, which has worked out very well in the 800. It's smaller pieces. I tell people, what are you going to cook? If you're going to cook pizza, don't waste Kamado Joe big lump. Get Cowboy or something
Yep.
like that. It's smaller pieces. It's going to heat up quicker. It's going to heat up hotter, faster.
Where I've landed on this question is that I have two. I'm using the Kamado Joe big block when I'm cooking meat. But like I said before, Trip probably hadn't heard this conversation. I've got two Kamado Joe Classics, and one of them, my Kamado Joe Classic 3, is my meat grill. My Kamado Joe Classic 2 is my everything else grill. And in the Kamado Joe Classic 3, I use the big block when I want to cook meat because the big block has a stronger smoke profile than the Royal Oak is my other go-to. I use Royal Oak in the Kamado Joe Classic 2 because in that grill, I'm doing things like pizza. I'm baking in that grill. I'm cooking anything I want to cook in a Kamado where I do not want the Kamado smoke profile. I cook it in the Classic 2, and I use Royal Oak because Royal Oak is an extremely clean burning lump charcoal. It does not have as much of a smoke profile as the others do. Another good one that is equal in terms of that with a Royal Oak is Rockwood. So the Rockwood lump is twice the price of Royal Oak. So you can buy whichever one you like, but it's good to know. Alan's with us. Smoked bacon in his Classic. It's a bit cold down here in Melbourne. Yeah, I was just talking earlier, Alan, about we're at the end of July, coming late July, early August. This is our hottest time of year, and I'm guessing it's probably your coldest time of year down in Australia and Melbourne. I hate that Melbourne, those guys canceled the F1 race again. The Melbourne Grand Prix has been canceled for 2 years in a row. So maybe in 2022, we'll get this COVID thing behind us, Alan. That's been bad. Australia is not seen the peak with COVID yet, like maybe we have here in the U.S., and that's unfortunate because things are maybe getting a little worse down there instead of better right now. So we wish you guys all the best with that and do whatever it takes. Alan says big block's expensive in Australia. Yeah, Alan, use whatever works for you. I'm one of these people that I'm not. Charcoal is not going to make or break my cook. That's something I like to say. You give me a bag of anything, and I'll cook with it. I don't feel like I need a specific charcoal to get the job done. There are charcoals I like better than others. I do not like huge pieces of charcoal. I will not buy Fogo Super Premium. I don't want pieces of charcoal that big, especially if I want to cook in a small grill like the Joe Jr. I'd have to hatchet that stuff down. I know everybody believes that's the sign of good charcoal is how big the pieces are, and more power to them. let them cook. So, Jeff, have you ever had to take a hatchet to a piece of charcoal, Jeff?
Oh, absolutely. Keep one right by the grill. The only
Yeah.
thing that I like the big charcoal for is the rotisserie.
Yeah.
You know, a
Well,
couple of good sized lumps. You know, 2, 3 of those, and you're good for a cook.
right. Okay. Well, we got to wrap things up. I've gone long again, and Jeff, I appreciate you coming on here with me.
Hey,
It's always
anytime.
nice to have a guest on here that we can bounce some things off with. Let's see what Tanya, you still working? Oh, Tanya's having cat duty up there.
Cat
Uh,
duty.
I see the co-producer Lily is up
Yes,
there. She's she's between the keyboard and the main show producer there.
that's exactly right. Right where she
So,
belongs.
yep. The Tanya's computer is cat powered. Did you know that?
It's true.
It won't work unless there's a cat close by. So, all right. Well, have we forgotten anything, Tanya?
I don't think so.
No. All righty. Well, Jeff, thanks for coming in, and
Not a problem. Anytime.
we'll have you back on here. I'm still trying to figure out how to get Stephen Hickey on here. So if you got
Well,
any
hey, I thought
ideas on
maybe if
that,
I came on, Steven and Luca would come on next.
well, Luca's busy. Luca told me earlier today. I think he's got some extra daddy duty right now. Luca's got some kids he's got his hands full with here at the moment. He's been working late or working early or something. He doesn't have.
He's
He
got
doesn't
new
have.
kids at work too.
Well, see, Luca's got personal responsibilities that I don't have. So, yeah, my cats are easier to maintain than kids are. So we'll
That's
get
right,
him
just
on
keep
here
the kitty
sometime.
box clean and you're good to go.
Yeah. All right, guys. I appreciate you hanging out with me, and we'll talk to you next Friday. Yep, next Friday night. Until then, y'all have a good weekend.